Okay, let's dive right into this, and I want to start by challenging pretty much everything you think you know about your baby's development. Look, if you're a parent, you already know the absolute bone-deep exhaustion of those midnight hours. I mean, you're constantly monitoring every single milestone, every little coo, every tear, wondering exactly what on earth is happening inside that tiny, rapidly growing brain. We put this immense, almost crushing amount of pressure on ourselves to shape our baby's mind, right? We read to them, we talk to them in those high-pitched voices, we buy perfectly curated developmental toys, and we enroll them in sensory classes. And we do all of this with the absolute belief that we are directly building their cognitive abilities from the outside in. But speaking parent to parent here, and armed with the very latest science, I'm here to tell you something wild. We have literally been looking at the wrong organ this entire time. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going deep, and I mean really deep, into some breaking science that is going to fundamentally shift how you see your child, how you view their development, and how you understand the very origins of their emotions. I want to pose a totally startling question to you right up front. Just think about the massive gap this creates in our understanding of human development. We associate feelings, resilience, and mental health exclusively with the brain, right? Of course we do. But what if the single most powerful thing shaping your baby's emotional intelligence, their stress resilience, and their long-term mental health isn't actually happening inside their skull at all? What if it's happening in their stomach? There is this groundbreaking wave of research from 2021 to 2024 that essentially proves the emotional brain is actually being assembled in the digestive tract. It's mind-blowing. We are going to unpack exactly how that miraculous biology works today. But first, to truly grasp this, we need to understand the sheer, incomprehensible scale of the machinery hiding right now in your baby's belly.
500 million. That is the number of neurons living, firing, and actively communicating right now in your baby's digestive tract. To put that staggering number into perspective, your baby has more nerve cells operating in their gut than they do in their entire spinal cord. This incredibly complex semi-autonomous network of neurons is called the enteric nervous system. It is quite literally a second brain. And it's so sophisticated that it can actually make decisions completely on its own. It manages complex bodily functions, regulates blood flow, and adjusts immune responses, all without ever needing to ask the brain in the head for permission. It's like this highly advanced independent control room located right behind their belly button. And the global scientific community has recently realized that this second brain is doing far, far more than just digesting milk and processing food.
For decades, we were all sold this old myth. We were told the gut was essentially just plumbing. You know the drill. Its only job was to receive food, extract the necessary nutrients, and eliminate the waste. It was just a simple mechanical tube. And under that old belief, parenting advice focused strictly on the physical mechanics of feeding. We were told to monitor allergy risks, track those weight gain percentiles obsessively, and just make sure the baby was physically fed. But groundbreaking new research proves a completely new reality. The gut is an active, deeply integrated participant in cognitive and emotional brain development. This is why understanding this new framework is absolutely critical for you. Ignoring this neurological shift is simply no longer an option. What happens in the gut during the first 1,000 days of life literally writes the biological code for your baby's future emotional health. It is actively shaping how they will handle stress for decades to come.
So who exactly is running this second brain? Well, inside your baby's digestive tract right now are approximately 100 trillion microbial organisms. Now, for a long time, we just called them good bacteria and assumed they helped out with digestion. But let's get real here. These microbes are not just passengers along for the ride. They are highly skilled builders. Think of them as a microscopic construction crew working around the clock. They are actively constructing the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for complex behaviors like executive function, planning, and emotional regulation. And simultaneously, they're actively calibrating the amygdala, which is the brain's central, primitive threat detection system. This construction crew isn't just sitting back watching the brain grow. They are hands-on, building the infrastructure of your baby's mind from the inside out, literally determining how structurally sound their emotional responses will be as they grow up.
So, at this point, you are probably wondering, how on earth do bugs in the stomach build a brain in the head? I mean, it sounds like science fiction. The answer lies in something called the vagus nerve. Think of the vagus nerve like a massive, high-speed, two-way fiber optic phone cable running straight between your baby's gut and their brain. It is the super highway of the gut-brain axis. Now, here is the absolutely most astonishing part of this entire biological design. We always thought the brain was the CEO, right? Actually, scratch that. 80 to 90% of the information traveling on this cable is going from the gut
up to the brain. The gut is making almost all the calls. The gut isn't just passively taking orders from the head, it is actively directing the brain's state. It sends continuous millisecond by millisecond updates about the environment, the state of the immune system, and emotional safety, directly influencing how the brain wires itself in real time. Now I want you to look at the astonishing math behind our most famous brain chemical. When we think of serotonin, we almost exclusively think of the brain, right? Serotonin is that vital feel-good neurotransmitter that helps us stay calm, stay happy, regulate our REM sleep cycles, and maintain emotional balance. But 90 to 95% of the body's entire supply of serotonin is produced way down in the gut factory. And it's the bacteria, that tiny microscopic construction crew we talked about, that directly stimulates the cells in the gut lining to manufacture it. This gut-produced serotonin acts as the exact volume knob for your baby's inner threat alarm, the amygdala. If the bacteria are healthy and thriving, the volume is kept at a nice, manageable level. But if the bacteria are compromised, the factory shuts down and that biological threat alarm gets stuck on maximum volume, leading to intense crying, fussiness, and prolonged stress. Let's look inside this remarkable chemical factory in a bit more detail, because it is churning out an entire pharmacy of compounds. It's not just serotonin. The specific bacterial strains that dominate a healthy infant's gut also produce GABA. Now, GABA is the brain's primary calming inhibitory chemical. It literally tells overexcited, frantic neurons to slow down and relax. It's essentially the brain's natural chill pill. And perhaps most importantly, when these gut bacteria digest fiber, they produce something called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. To put it simply, SCFAs are the specialized fuel that powers the brain's cleanup crew, these tiny essential amine cells in the brain called microglia. Think of a baby's brain like a rapidly overgrowing lush forest. To function well, a skilled gardener needs to carefully trim the dead branches. When the gut makes enough SCFA fuel, the microglia act like that skilled gardener, carefully pruning and polishing the brain's neural connections. But without this vital fuel from the gut, the cleanup crew panics. They act more like a reckless demolition team, which can severely disrupt healthy brain development.
And we aren't just guessing here. We can actually measure the real-world physical impact of this chemistry on a baby's stress levels. There was an absolutely fascinating study out of the UC Davis Mind Institute. They looked at infants' gut microbiomes at 6 months old, and then later measured their cortisol, which is the body's primary stress hormone, when they hit 12 months old. The results were incredibly clear. The babies who had high levels of those SCFA-producing bacteria in their gut had cortisol stress responses that were 23% lower than the babies with less of those healthy bacteria. Think about what that actually means in your living room on a Tuesday afternoon. The gut bacteria are essentially calibrating the baby's internal stress thermostat for life. A healthy, flourishing microbiome sets that thermostat to calm, allowing the baby to recover from stress more easily, settle down from a tantrum way faster, and self-soothe more effectively.
So the crucial point naturally becomes, how in the world do we feed this specific brain-building bacterial crew to make sure they can actually do their job? Well, biology has a brilliant evolutionary answer. Human breast milk contains over 200 distinct complex carbohydrates called human milk oligosaccharides, or HMOs. Here is the wild, totally mind-bending part of this. Babies cannot digest HMOs at all. These complex sugars pass completely undigested through the baby's stomach and small intestine. Now, why on earth would a mother's body spend immense biological energy creating complex sugars her baby can't even use? Because they aren't for the baby. They are targeted microbiome medicine, designed exclusively to feed those specific brain-building bifidobacterium species living in the lower gut. Now, listen to me. If you are formula feeding, please do not panic. Modern science has realized this mechanism is so absolutely critical that many modern formulas now include synthesized HMOs, ensuring that regardless of how they are fed, that bacterial crew gets exactly what it needs to build the brain. Everything we've talked about so far leads us to a massive landmark study published in 2024 by researchers affiliated with the Broad Institute at MIT and Harvard, echoing some huge findings coming out of the Karolinska Institute. This study finally answers the profound question we posed at the very beginning of this explainer. Scientists didn't just want to know that the gut affects the brain. They wanted to nail down the timeline. They asked, just how early does the gut start writing the emotional story of a child's life? Is it at 2 years old, 1 year old? When exactly does the permanent foundation of anxiety and emotional resilience truly get poured? The setup of this study was beautifully simple but incredibly profound. The researchers took stool samples to map the complete gut microbial profiles of infants when they were just 6 weeks old.
6 weeks, barely out of the newborn phase, a time when all they do is sleep, cry, and eat. Then the scientists simply waited. They watched as these children grew, as their brain circuitry rapidly formed over the first year, as they hit their mental leaps, and then they rigorously tested their anxiety levels and emotional regulation capacity at 2 years of age. And the results? Staggering. The specific microscopic community of bacteria living in that tiny baby's stomach at just 6 weeks old accurately predicted exactly how anxious and emotionally regulated that toddler would be 2 full years later.
So just how remarkably accurate was this prediction? Well, in behavioral science and statistics, researchers use a metric called area under the curve, or AUC, to measure predictive accuracy. To give you a baseline, an AUC of 0.5 is exactly the same as a random coin flip, pure random chance. The 2024 study achieved an AUC of 0.79. That means this prediction was remarkably, undeniably, scientifically accurate. The robust presence of specific bacteria like Bifidobacterium longum at 6 weeks was a massive, statistically significant predictor of strong emotional regulation at 2 years. The data is clear, it's undeniably profound. At 6 weeks of age, before they can roll over, before they can even intentionally smile or babble at you, your baby's gut is already laying down the permanent biological foundation for their emotional resilience.
I want to just pause right here, step back from all the clinical data for a second, and speak directly to the exhausted parents watching this. I deeply know the pressure you are under. I know the anxiety of those 3 a.m. wake-ups where you're just second-guessing everything. But I want this science to fundamentally reframe how you look at your daily life with your child. Every single feeding choice you make, whether you are nursing in the dark, mixing a bottle of formula with HMOs, or handing them their very first incredibly messy spoonful of sweet potatoes, it isn't just a physical chore about maintaining their weight gain percentiles. You are witnessing a profound miracle of biology. You are physically supplying the raw materials to the microscopic construction crew that is actively building your baby's emotional brain. You are, quite literally, giving them the tools to handle the stress of the world. Dr. John Cryan, who is one of the leading global researchers in this completely fascinating field of the gut-brain axis, puts it perfectly. He says, "The microbiome is not a passive passenger. It is an active participant in brain development, building the brain itself." I want you to use this powerful scientific validation to finally let go of your parental guilt. Perfection is absolutely not required here, okay? The microbiome is highly resilient, wonderfully malleable, and constantly adapting. But simply by focusing on diverse, healthy nutrition, making mindful choices when it comes to things like antibiotics, and generally supporting their gut health, you are literally inoculating your baby's mind with resilience. You are quietly, steadily building the deep, neurological calm that they will draw upon for the rest of their entire lives.
We've covered some truly mind-bending science today, moving from that outdated myth of the gut as mere plumbing to the awe-inspiring reality of the gut as a brain-building second nervous system. But look, scientific data is only half the story. Your real-world lived experience is the other half. Has your baby's gut health visibly changed how they sleep or how they cry? Have you ever noticed a rapid shift in their mood or their sleep cycles when you tweaked their diet, resolved a feeding issue, or maybe added a probiotic? Tell us your experience in the comments below. Let's build a vibrant community of empowered parents who finally understand the miraculous biology happening inside their children right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, the next time you hear your baby cry, their brain is listening to their gut. Are you?